Hello, everyone. Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment with where you're from and what time you're watching. That way, YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. Now, let's begin.
Story 1. The Light at Devil's Hollow. The sea at Devil's Hollow never slept. Even on calm nights, the waves hissed and rolled as if whispering to the rocks below the lighthouse, repeating something too old for men to understand. The locals in Birch Harbor said that no one lasted long out there. Not the first keeper, not the second, and not the one before last who was found drowned in his own water cistern. But Thomas Keene wasn't the sort to believe gossip. He'd come from Portland, a young man of 28 with a clean record and a desperate need for solitude. The Lighthouse service had sent him north after his predecessor, Keeper Wallace, was found dead in the keeper's quarters, throat swollen black, eyes bulging, as if he'd suffocated on seawater, though the room had been bone dry. The locals told him the place was cursed. Thomas only laughed and said, "A curse can't keep the lamp burning." He arrived in early October. Fog hugged the coastline like smoke from a dying fire. The tower stood on a jagged spit of granite half a mile offshore, connected by a narrow causeway that disappeared beneath the tide twice a day. The ferryman, old Harris, refused to cross after sunset. "You best light that lamp early," Harris grunted as Thomas disembarked. "And don't look too long into the fog. Folks say it looks back." Thomas only nodded, hoisting his pack and lantern, the beam trembling in the mist. The lighthouse itself was a relic of iron and salt. The spiral stair groaned beneath his boots, the walls sweating with condensation. At the top, the great Fresnel lens sat dark and still, a glass eye waiting to awaken. He trimmed the wick, filled the reservoir, and struck a match. The flame caught, flared, and the lens began to turn. For a moment the room bloomed with golden light, casting wide beams through the fog like claws scraping the night. As the mechanism hummed, Thomas thought he heard something else beneath the gears, a soft moaning, as if the wind itself were sighing inside the walls. He worked late, checking the shutters, polishing brass. When at last he descended to the keeper's quarters, he found the logbook left by Wallace. The last entry, dated 3 weeks before, read simply, "The light is not ours. It wants out." Thomas frowned, closing the book. Superstitious nonsense. But when he lay down that night, the sea whispered against the rocks in a rhythm too steady to be waves, almost like words. Keene, Keene. He dreamt of the light turning itself on, and of something vast and slick crawling up the rocks toward it. 3 nights passed uneventfully. Thomas settled into his routine, polish the glass, record the weather, tend the flame. The solitude was bracing. It washed the noise of the world clean from his mind. On the 4th night, a storm came. Rain lashed the tower like claws. The sea was a boiling black pit. Thomas kept the lamp steady, the flame fighting against the wind. Near midnight, someone knocked at the keeper's door. It was impossible. The causeway was under 10 feet of water, the waves exploding white against the rocks. Yet the knock came again, slow, deliberate. Thomas took up his lantern and unlatched the door. No one was there, only the fog, thick and gray as wool, pressing in from all sides. He stepped out, holding the lantern high. "Hello? Who's there?" Something moved near the edge of the causeway. A figure hunched and dripping, its head bowed. "God's sake," Thomas muttered, rushing forward. "You'll drown out here?" As he neared, the figure raised its head. The lantern light caught a pale face, bloated and slick, the eyes milky white. Seawater poured from its open mouth. Thomas stumbled back, the lantern swinging wildly. The thing took one shuddering step toward him and then vanished. He stood alone, the wind howling through the cracks. When morning came, the rocks were bare, no footprints, no sign of anyone. But by the door he found something caught in the threshold, a length of kelp tied into a crude knot, dripping brine. He burned it in the stove and said nothing in his log. Days became weeks. The isolation began to press upon him. Thomas found himself talking aloud, sometimes to the gulls, sometimes to the sea. One evening, while cleaning the storage chest in the cellar, he found another notebook hidden beneath a loose floorboard. It was older than the log upstairs, the pages swollen from moisture. The first entry bore the same hand as Wallace's, but the tone was different. There's a pulse in the light. It beats when I sleep. Further entries grew increasingly erratic. I saw her again tonight, in the surf. Her hair tangled with weed. She called my name. I turned off the light. Still, it shone. It shines from beneath. The last page was covered in a single sentence repeated dozens of times. The sea remembers. That night, Thomas climbed to the lantern room and pressed his hand against the base of the lens. He felt it, faint, but there, a rhythmic throb, as if the metal itself were breathing. He stayed up until dawn, staring into the beam as it swept across the fog, half expecting to see faces in the mist. 2 weeks later, a ship was spotted off course, the Evangeline, a merchant schooner bound for Portland. The fog was thick enough to swallow the world. Thomas kept the light burning, ringing the bell every half hour. At 3 a.m, the crash came, a thunderous crack of timber and iron. He rushed outside to see the Evangeline broken upon the rocks, the sea devouring her hull. Shadows screamed in the water. He grabbed his rope and oilskin, scrambling down the cliff path. The surf nearly took him, but he managed to haul 2 sailors to the rocks. One was alive, gasping. The other's throat had been torn open as if by coral. The survivor clutched Thomas's sleeve. "We saw it," he rasped, "in the light. Thought it was safe, but it called us in." "What did?" "The thing behind the glass." Then his eyes rolled back and he was gone. Thomas staggered back to the tower. The light was still spinning, though he hadn't wound the mechanism for hours. He climbed to the top and stopped cold. Inside the lens, just for a moment, he saw something move, a slick, black shape circling the flame like a moth in oil. He tried to leave. The next morning, he packed his things. But when he reached the causeway, the sea was higher than he'd ever seen it. The tide charts made no sense. It should have been low. The fog rolled in, and the world vanished beyond 10 feet. He turned back. That night, the knocking returned, louder this time, coming from the base of the tower. Then the whispering began again, rising through the floorboards. "Keen, keeper, feed the light." He covered his ears, but the words were inside his skull now. The lamp above throbbed in rhythm with his pulse. He climbed to the top, trembling. The glass was warm under his palm, and as he stared into it, something stared back. An eye vast and black, pupil deep as a well. "We were the first," said a voice from everywhere at once. "We built it to see the depths. Now it sees us." Thomas screamed and smashed the lantern glass with the iron wrench. The light exploded outward in a spray of fire and steam. For a moment, the fog outside cleared, revealing the true shape of Devil's Hollow. Not a rock, but the curved crown of something enormous beneath the waves, its flesh studded with barnacles and half-drowned bones. The tower trembled. The sea roared. Then all went black. Weeks later, the ferryman Harris reported strange lights over the hollow. The new inspector sent by the Lighthouse service found the tower burned and abandoned. Thomas Keene's body was never recovered, but the logbook remained, open to a fresh page written in a shaking hand. The light still turns. It shines from below. The sea remembers. They rebuilt Devil's Hollow Lighthouse 5 years later. No keeper has lasted more than a season since. On foggy nights, sailors swear the beam sometimes sweeps the wrong way, out to sea, as if searching for something. And if you stand close enough to the rocks when the tide is high, you can still hear it calling. Keeper, feed the light. Story 2. Whispers of St. Elmo's Point. The storm came without warning. By dusk, the horizon was abruze, thick clouds smothering the last red light of the sun, the wind moaning through the dunes. The air smelled like copper and rain. For miles along the Carolina coast, fishermen pulled in their lines, shutters slammed shut, and the radio crackled warnings. But to Howard Finn, it was a summons. He had been chasing storms for 15 years, photographer, amateur meteorologist, and some said madman. He'd caught cyclones over the Gulf, lightning over the Keys, even the tail of a tornado in Oklahoma. But this was something else. The reports all mentioned the same strange phenomenon near the decommissioned St. Elmo's Point Lighthouse. Flashes of blue fire dancing along the railings, a glow bright as a bonfire around the lantern room, visible even through the thickest fog. To most, it was just a trick of electricity. To Howard, it was a chance to make history. The locals wouldn't take him there. At the gas station in Kill Devil Hills, the old attendant refused to draw the route on the map. "That tower's been dead 15 years, son," he muttered. "Ain't no reason to wake it up again." "Wake it up?" Howard laughed. "It's a building, not a bear." The man only shook his head. Used to be 4 keepers there, none of them left in one piece. The last one, Dawes I think, hung himself from the lens room. Said the light was whispering to him. Howard thanked him, bought extra film, and drove on. The road wound through marsh and pine, the sea never far to his right, whispering behind the dunes. By the time he reached the last stretch of sand, night had fallen. The lighthouse rose ahead, a black spire against the storm sky. Its light, long extinguished, flickered faintly blue for just a heartbeat as lightning clawed the clouds. Howard smiled. "Got you." He parked the truck at the edge of the causeway and loaded his gear. Camera, tripod, barometer, and a heavy coat. Rain struck in needles as he trudged toward the tower, each flash of lightning revealing the shape of the old keeper's cottages huddled at its base. Roof half caved, doors torn from their hinges. The lighthouse itself leaned slightly, its paint blistered by salt and wind. The great lens above was shattered in places, like a broken eye. Howard forced the rusted door open. The smell hit him at once. Mildew, iron, and something faintly metallic, almost like ozone. Inside, he set up camp. His lantern, his notebook, and his precious Graflex camera. He would wait for the blue lightning, photograph it, and be gone before dawn. Simple plan, but storms have their own plans. It started with the wind. At first it was just the howl through the cracks, but as the hours passed, it grew rhythmic, almost like breathing. Then came the voices. He was adjusting his tripod when he heard them, faint at first, riding the hiss of the rain. Light! The light! He froze. The sound seemed to come from the stairwell leading upward. "Hello?" he called, his voice lost in the thunder. "Is someone up there?" No answer. He lifted his lantern and started up the spiral stairs. The metal was slick with moisture. Every step echoed, hollow and wet. Halfway up, he paused. The air shimmered faintly blue. Tiny sparks danced along the handrail, crackling like static. He reached the top. The lantern room was alive. Bolts of pale fire crawled over the glass, spiderwebbing the lens with electric veins. The metal gears ticked faintly, though there was no wind to move them. And then, for just an instant, he saw them. 4 shadows reflected in the glass, standing behind him where no one stood. He turned sharply. Nothing. Only the storm. But the air whispered again. "Keeper Dawes. Turn the light." By morning, the storm had calmed. Howard found himself at the keeper's desk, soaked and trembling. The lantern had gone out hours before, but the memory of blue light still pulsed behind his eyes. Searching for something to occupy his hands, he rifled through the drawers. In the bottom one, wrapped in oilskin, he found a journal. The first page read, "Journal of Keeper Edward Dawes, 1922, St. Elmo's Point." He turned the pages carefully. The entries began plainly enough: weather reports, maintenance notes, supply shipments. Then they grew strange. March 3rd. The light burns blue now. Not flame, not gas. It hums when I sleep. March 7th. The others hear it too. It speaks in the thunder. March 12th. We cannot turn it off. When we tried, the bulb grew brighter on its own. March 18th. It calls itself by name. Elmo, patron of sailors. But this light does not protect, it chooses. The final entry was dated 2 days before Dawes' death. The storm is coming again. The sea glows. We will not see morning. Howard closed the book, heart hammering. The storm outside had returned. By dusk, the sky had turned an unnatural shade, greenish blue like deep water. Lightning licked the clouds, but made no sound. Howard set up his camera at the base of the tower, aiming up towards the glass eye. The light above began to pulse again, faint at first, then growing stronger, brighter, until it painted the rocks and sea in ghostly cerulean. He snapped photos feverishly, each flash of lightning caught on film. But through the lens, he saw something the naked eye could not. Figures circling inside the tower, moving in slow, ritual motion. He tore the film from the camera, clutching it to his chest. "That's enough," he muttered. "Got what I came for." But when he turned toward the shore, the path was gone. The causeway had vanished beneath the tide, though the tide should not yet have come in. Worse, the dunes themselves seemed to shift, sand flowing as if alive. And from behind him, the tower groaned, a deep metallic cry. The blue fire spilled down its sides like liquid lightning, creeping across the sand toward him. He ran for the cottages, slamming a door behind him. The floorboards glowed faintly where the light touched them. Then came the voices again, louder now, overlapping, men and women, desperate and pleading. "Keep the fire lit. He's angry. Don't let it die." Howard pressed his back against the door. "Who's there?" Silence. Then closer, almost beside his ear, "You brought it back." Hours passed, or maybe minutes, time bent in the storm's roar. When Howard dared to look outside again, The blue glow had dimmed. The tower was dark, except for a faint shimmer high above. Something was moving in the lantern room. He stepped out, drawn as if by gravity, his boots sinking into the wet sand. The door to the tower stood open, the hinges glowing faintly. He climbed the stairs. Each step throbbed with energy. His fingers buzzed against the rail. At the top, the lens turned slowly, though no mechanism moved it. Behind the fractured glass stood a man in a soaked keeper's coat, his skin as pale as fog. A noose hung loose around his neck. "Dawes," Howard breathed. The ghost looked up. His eyes glowed faint blue. "It wants the light, sir." "Always the light." Howard took a step forward. "What is it?" "The storm." "The fire." Saint Elmo himself, but not the saint anymore. The specter's voice was a low hum, like current through a wire. "It feeds on the fear of the lost. The more we watch it, the stronger it grows." Lightning struck the sea below, silent, blinding. When Howard looked back, Dawes's face was inches from his own. "Don't look," the ghost whispered. "Don't look when it—" The light flared. Howard screamed as the beam seared across his eyes. For a moment, the world vanished, replaced by visions. The sea boiling with bodies, faces rising in the surf, mouths open in eternal breath. The tower stood at the center of it all, pulsing like a heart. Then he was on the floor, the ghost gone. Only the hum remained, a deep, steady vibration through the stones. He crawled to the lens, shielding his eyes. Through the glass, he saw the storm split open the horizon, and from it emerged something vast, made of lightning and water, towering over the ocean like a living tempest. Its form was half human, half serpent, its eyes twin bolts of blue fire. Every crash of thunder was a voice. I guided them once. They prayed to me. Now they forget. So I take them. Howard stumbled back, covering his ears. The creature's gaze fixed on him through the glass. Keeper Dawes kept my light. Now you will. The beam burst outward, engulfing the room in blue flame. 3 days later, the Coast Guard found Howard's truck washed up near the dunes. Inside were his camera and journal, pages scorched at the edges. The photographs, when developed, showed the lighthouse glowing brilliant blue, but in every frame, a human figure could be seen standing in the lantern room, watching the horizon. Experts dismissed it as a trick of exposure. St. Elmo's Point was finally demolished in 1941. Yet sailors who pass near that stretch of the Outer Banks still report strange weather. Lightning without thunder, blue fire over the waves, and the faint sound of a camera shutter clicking in the wind. And on rare nights when the storm is strong enough, a light sweeps across the water once more. Bright, blue, and unearthly. If you listen closely, between the rolls of thunder, you can hear the whisper, "Keep the fire lit." Story 3. The Last Signal from Ashwood Spire. The sea had eaten most of Ashwood Spire. What remained of the 19th century lighthouse clung to the cliffside like a barnacle. Its foundation cracked, its railing rusted through. The last keeper had died there in 1974. Since then, it had been sealed, a relic left to the gulls and storms. Until the signal came through. The Coast Guard station in Newport had been quiet that night. Technician Leah Martin was halfway through her shift, listening to the hum of static through the radio array. Routine weather scans, cargo updates, maritime chatter, nothing unusual. Then came the call. A faint Morse sequence punched through the static. 3 dots, Three dashes, three dots. SOS. Leah frowned. The frequency was old, long abandoned, assigned decades ago to manual lighthouse communication. She twisted the dial, isolating it. The signal repeated, stronger this time. Then, clear as a bell. Ashwood Spire to Station Delta. Request maintenance. Lamp malfunction. Immediate assistance required. Leah froze. Ashwood Spire had been dark for 50 years. She checked the system logs. The call sign was authentic, exactly as it had been registered in 1952. Her supervisor, a man named Hobbs, was asleep in the next room. She considered waking him, but something in the message felt personal. She keyed the mic. Ashwood Spire, this is Coast Guard Newport Station. Identify yourself. Static. Then a reply. Keeper Holt. Need assistance. Lens won't stop turning. Leah's pulse quickened. She recognized the name. Raymond Holt, the last keeper, had been found dead at his post. Eyes burned white, hands still clutching the crank that powered the lens. She swallowed hard. Ashwood Spire, please repeat. This is Station Newport. What's your situation? A hiss of static. Then faintly, the lights awake again. By dawn, she'd convinced Hobbs to let her go. Probably just a rogue signal bouncing off the weather, he said, rubbing his eyes. That place is condemned. Then I'll confirm it's empty, Leah replied, already packing her field kit. If there's equipment reactivating out there, we need to shut it down. The ride north took 3 hours. Fog hugged the coastline, turning the world a pale gray. She followed the old road past Tillamook, through forests that smelled of rain and pine. Ashwood Spire appeared suddenly out of the mist, a skeletal tower on the edge of the world. The gate was chained, the warning signs half buried in moss. Danger, structural instability, do not enter. She climbed over anyway. The sound of the sea was constant, endless. Waves slammed the rocks below, echoing like distant cannon fire. When she reached the base of the tower, her radio crackled. "Welcome back!" Her throat tightened. "Ashwood Spire, this is Officer Martin." "Who is this?" "Keeper Holt," came the calm reply. "You took your time." The voice was crisp, Midwestern, slightly amused. "Mr. Holt, this is 2025, Leah said, forcing herself to sound steady. "You've been—" "Don't say it," the voice interrupted. "You'll wake it." Then the line went dead. Inside, the air smelled of salt and rust. The stairs spiraled up into shadow, the iron slick with condensation. Her flashlight beam cut through the fog, seeping through the cracks. Halfway up, she found the first relic, a rusted lantern still upright on the step, its glass blackened as if burned from within. Her radio crackled again. "Don't look down, Officer Martin." She froze. "How do you know my name?" "You told me. Before." Her pulse pounded. "Before what?" "Before the light came back." She climbed faster. The higher she went, the louder the wind became, but beneath it was something else. A faint mechanical hum, steady and alive. When she reached the top, she stopped cold. The lens was turning. It shouldn't have been. The generator had been dismantled decades ago, yet the massive Fresnel glass spun in perfect rhythm, casting pale light through the cracked windows. She approached slowly. The bulb at its center wasn't electric. It was something else. Something like liquid fire, swirling inside the glass like a trapped storm. "Jesus," she whispered. Her radio hissed again. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Leah spun around. The room was empty. Only her reflection moved in the glass. Until it didn't. In the next sweep of the lens, her reflection lingered, half a second too long. Its mouth moved when hers did not. Don't let it stop. She found the old logbook on the desk beside the lens crank. The pages were brittle, the ink faded to brown. March 14th, 1974. The light changed tonight. Not the bulb, the light. It hums when it turns. Feels alive. I hear it when I sleep. March 16th. Tried to power it down. The crank moves itself now. Sees me when I'm near. March 20th. I understand now. It's not meant to guide ships away. It calls them in. March 22nd, last entry. If anyone finds this, don't answer when it calls. Don't look in the glass. The light remembers faces. The final words were smeared, as though written in haste or blood. Leah backed away. The lens turned behind her, its light now pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. She pulled the radio from her belt. Station Newport, this is Officer Martin. I've reached Ashwood Spire. There's power here. Unknown source. Only static. Then, faintly, turn it off before it finds you. She followed the cables down into the base of the tower. They led to a trapdoor she hadn't noticed before, half hidden under debris. When she pulled it open, a blast of cold, damp air rose from below. A staircase descended into darkness. She hesitated, then switched on her flashlight and started down. The steps ended in a stone chamber, flooded ankle-deep with seawater. At its center stood an old radio console glowing faintly, though it wasn't connected to any visible power source. On its display, the same Morse sequence pulsed. S-O-S. 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 She approached, wiping condensation from the dials. The frequency was the same one she'd received back at Newport. And then, through the static, the voice returned, louder, clearer. You shouldn't have come back, Leah. Her breath caught. You're not Holt. We were Holt. We were all of them. You heard us call. The voice shifted as it spoke, deeper, older, layered with echoes of many. It needs a keeper. Every light needs one. The radio's glow intensified, and the water around her feet began to shimmer. Reflections formed on its surface, faces, dozens of them, staring up from beneath a rippling tide. Feed the light, the voices whispered. The lens above began to spin faster, the vibration shaking the tower to its foundation. Leah ran up the stairs. The beam was blinding now, bursting through the glass like a living flame. The metal floor hummed beneath her boots. Her reflection moved again in the lens, smiling. "Stop!" she screamed. "You're not me!" Not yet. She hurled her flashlight at the glass. It cracked, but instead of shattering, it bled. A dark, viscous fluid oozed from the fracture, hissing as it touched the air. The tower trembled. The sea below roared as if answering. Through the broken window, she saw the waves spiral outward in a perfect circle, glowing faintly gold. From the deep rose something vast. It wasn't a creature, not exactly, more a shape, a presence, a convergence of light and storm and water. It loomed against the horizon, eyeless yet aware, pulsing in time with the lens. The radio on her belt crackled one last time. Keeper Holt reporting. Lens operational. Replacement secured. The voice was her own. Leah backed toward the stairs. No. Every light needs a keeper, the reflection said. The beam flared, white, blinding, and she fell backward into darkness. When rescue arrived 3 days later, Ashwood Spire was gone. The cliff had collapsed into the sea. They found Leah's truck at the roadside, engine still warm, headlights aimed toward the fog. The last radio transmission recorded at Newport Station was a single phrase in her voice. Ashwood Spire to Station Delta. Lens operational. All's well. But the frequency it came from no longer existed. 6 months later, a new weather buoy was installed near the site. Every few nights, its sensors picked up brief flashes from beneath the waves, perfectly timed intervals, like a beacon still turning far below. The Coast Guard dismissed it as a sonar echo. But one night, an intern listening through the backup channel heard something faint between bursts of static. "Welcome back, Officer Martin." And far out at sea, a fishing trawler reported a strange light cutting through the fog, a steady golden beam sweeping across the horizon, searching, calling. They said it looked like a lighthouse, standing where there should have been only water.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe.